Hey, Goodwill Church, it is great to see you again. My name is Mark Ortega, one of the pastors, and I am with two awesome special guests, Annie Barnett and Kristen Fazio. So welcome to both of you. How's everything going today? You doing all right today?
Yeah.
Yeah, today going good. Kristen's just nodding. All right. Yeah, it's parenting. So, I mean, this is a crazy time. This has been an insane couple of weeks. So what does day-to-day look like for you guys right now?
Annie, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. For us, we're home, self-isolating. We have
Yeah.
three kids, everywhere from a young teenager down to a toddler. So we're doing all kinds of activities all day, school sending lots of work our way. So managing that, staying in touch with friends over phone. And today we're going to do our first family Zoom call with extended family all over the country.
Oh,
So
cool.
keeping pretty busy, but we're
Yeah.
doing fine.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, busy makes it, and Zoom is a great tool. I mean, we're using this for interviews, and I hope people are getting from that they can then go and talk to their friends and talk to their family. And isolation doesn't mean you can't talk to anybody. So hopefully they're taking advantage of that. Kristen, how about you? What's day to day like for you right now?
Well, I have a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Oh,
So
good.
it's pretty much business as usual.
Yeah, sounds
No
about
sleep, lots of playing.
right.
No, but just simple things that have been like going to the playground, going to gymnastics class, going to Sunday school. I lead Moms Together. So my responsibilities have shifted to more of the Facebook group and Zoom and all that kind of stuff as well. My husband is a firefighter down in the city, so he's in Queens.
Okay.
So far everything's okay, but he's an essential worker, so we're home as much as I'm home. That's it. But he's home. He's going out just for work. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, especially with all the essential workers, but especially those who are on the front lines. I mean, we are praying hard for folks
thank
who
you.
are, the emergency workers, folks in the hospitals, firefighters who knows what they're going to be coming in contact with every time they go to a call. So we're praying hard for that, and it's that kind of home reality that we want to talk about today. We are most of us quarantined. Most of us being thrown a lot of things from life that none of us were expecting. Life is very different now than it was just a couple weeks ago. And, we've launched this Goodwill Strong initiative. And really what we're trying to do is build community best we can online, keep people connected best we can. That's what the church is about. It's not just about content. It's about how we're connecting with one another. And you guys reached out to the church just a couple days ago and said, hey, we have this idea. We want to be able to really serve the women of the church. And so I wonder, Annie, if you could talk briefly, what is this idea that you've called Kindred, and how do we understand exactly what you're thinking about for the women of the church?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, this was just born out of a lot of conversations and connection over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks almost now. I have had so many conversations with friends, whether they're friends who are in the same stage of life as I am, who are at home now doing school from home, some of them also working full-time from home while doing that, or they're essential workers, so they're like doing their shift at the hospital and then coming home and trying to homeschool their kids, or friends who are single, who have gone from like this robust community life to trying to do that all on their phone or computer, talking to people in my mom's generation who are, all of a sudden they've lived these active, busy lives and now they're home with nobody to take care of in their house, and maybe their husband, but their lives have changed so drastically. So all of our lives have changed so drastically, and it's had me thinking so much about what have been the steadying things in my life as a woman, in my life, that have kept me grounded. And one of the things I've come back to again and again is the presence of other women in my life, and specifically really been thinking about other women in other generations in my life and how much that has poured into me from the time I was like a middle schooler and older women mentored and discipled me to the time I was in college, all different stages of my life as a young mom, and just how much having people outside of the stress that I was in that moment was a gift to me. And obviously right now we're all in this moment together. We're all self-isolating. So we're all in this stress, but women outside of our generation have a little more perspective than we do. So the idea kind of came of like, how can we connect women in our church? So much of our organic connecting happens on a Sunday morning when you run into someone and end up in a really beautiful conversation. So how can we make that happen for women? And that's kind of the heart of where this came from.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you're absolutely right. We have been yanked out of the space where we can have that community. And so we're trying to come up with these, it almost feels artificial for a second, like, oh, is this forced? We've been forced into this. Like, we have to figure out how to build this community. Now, Kristen, Annie listed a handful of different kind of populations, but you also mentioned that you're working with Moms Together. So can you walk us through, like, is this just for moms, or are we trying to cast a wide net for all the women in the church? So who's the audience for this?
So this is welcome to all women.
Okay.
When Annie approached me, Annie and I have known each other for a really long time. We've worked together in other ministries. So when she said, "Can I give you a call?" I knew that something was brewing in her mind. And when she told me, I was like, wow, this is extraordinary, and I want to be a part of it. And we want to launch it within Moms Together, just because I do see a need within our own group. Some of us are stay-at-home moms, some of us are moms that are trying to work from home with young children or older children present. And we don't have the answers. So looking to other moms, we do have mentor moms in our group, built in already, but just having to be able to foster relationship even further, one-on-one would be super helpful. So Annie said, is there any way that we can kind of streamline it and target it through our moms group? I said, absolutely. But it's open to everybody. We welcome everyone to join. You don't have to fit all the boxes. That's the beauty of this ministry. So
yeah, and so this ministry really is going to kind of take a parallel track, right? So we have Moms Together, and we have some of those systems built in, but that is a group that's kind of tailored, especially towards moms with younger kids. So even moms with teens are kind of wrestling with many different things than we would be dealing with in something like Moms Together, right? And so the heart behind this is to say, hey, all women need this kind of camaraderie. This mentorship might be a strong word, because we're going to get into the logistics of this. Like, this isn't a hardcore mentoring. This is just care. Not. This is how we can keep contact and care for one another. And so, Annie, I wonder, could you walk us through some of the logistics? What exactly are we talking about? What are we asking women to jump in on?
Yeah. So our real hope and desire, what we try to do is say, like, here is this need. We are all longing for connection. We are needing that no matter what stage of life you are in, where you are as a woman. We all need that connection right now. What is the simplest thing we can do to meet that need? Like, we talked about all different ideas, but what is the bare minimum? And what we came up with, which might not be a great fit for everybody, but we're hoping to just cast a wide net here, is we're asking women to once a week have a 30-minute phone call with a woman from another generation. So our hope is that we would have lots of young women, whether you're new to your faith, whether you're single and working your first job, whether you're single working your third job, whether you're home with kids, whether you've struggled with infertility, it's just you and your husband, whatever your life situation is, if you consider yourself a young woman, that you would think about signing up for this new initiative we're doing, and that you would be willing to receive a call once a week for 30 minutes for 6 weeks. And we've kind of capped it at that just to give it some structure, just to say, like, hey, we're not asking you to make a best friend for the rest of your life. Would you once a week for 30 minutes touch base, or let an older woman touch base with you? And we're hoping that some seasoned Christian women who are grounded in their faith, who have weathered storms before, whether that's losses of different kinds, or, you've just lived life a little longer than we have. You have some experience that we don't have, so that those women would come alongside and be able to speak hope and truth and encouragement. I know in my life, in this last couple of weeks, the older women in my life who have made the effort to call me, to check in, to earnestly listen to how I'm doing and give me a little space to even even let my feelings rise to the surface. Because when I'm home managing all these things, I'm not even checking in with myself. So when I see certain people's name come up on my phone, when they ask me how I'm doing, I know they really want to hear. And so I check in with myself and recognize how I'm doing. And then the encouragement, the love, the prayer that they offer, that meets such a great need. So our hope, just in a nutshell, is that once a week for 30 minutes, you would touch base with someone outside your generation and have a phone call. And we're willing to provide some questions to kind of get that rolling, some scripture to encourage you, but that you would commit to that 30 minutes, and that would just provide an opportunity for connection and for care within our body.
I mean, that sounds incredible. It's something that maybe we want to consider for how do we get the men doing something like this too? Because this is, this is a great place of connection. I think it's important to highlight something you just said. I like the way you're phrasing it. Someone outside your generation, because we have a lot of peer-to-peer contact, but to have older generation speaking into the younger generation, and also for the older generation to have younger generation speaking into them is powerful. Like we're pouring out, but we're also getting filled up. And I see this a lot in the life of the church. Church is naturally multi-generational. And when the generations interact, that's where some of the greatest discipleship really comes into play.
And I've seen that even in my little text threads and in my life and community this week, one mom is like, oh, this is so hard for me. And you just get 5 other moms being like, me too, And then when you get another voice in there, and Kristen might be able to speak to that, they kind of saw that in a microcosm in their Moms Together group when they added older women to the mix. Kristen, do you want to speak to what that's meant to you this week?
Yeah, actually.
Older voices?
Erin Marcos, when I say Erin, meaning Marcos's, Pastor Marcos' wife, is a leader in the Moms Together group. And she had this awesome idea of adding some of the more seasoned moms. It's always tricky to say, but, a mom that has grown children or grandchildren into the group. And it is like leaps and bounds already. We've seen little connections. And I know that, like Annie, you said, you've had conversations this past week. I've connected with more women this week than I have throughout the past year, because of reaching out and to some of the mentor moms in our group for advice. And, I don't know what to do here, you know what I mean, in certain situations. So I've even seen just by adding that small amount of inviting those women into our group, we've seen so many more connections and so much more insight, which is really helpful to stay on that track.
That's awesome. And I mean, these kinds of relationships that are being born out of this crisis, we pray will carry on. Like some of them will be like, hey, you know what, 6 weeks, I can make those phone calls, but when things go back to normal, I'm not able to do that. But maybe you see that person at church and you have that connection that you've been built. Maybe those conversations continue and you start looking forward to your weekly conversation with that person of another generation with a different perspective. This is why we called this Goodwill Strong to begin with. We want to come through this with stronger relationships and stronger community than we went into it. And it sounds counterintuitive, but I think that's really important that we come out of here stronger than we went in. And so I wonder, Kristen, could you share, how do women get involved? Like if they're listening thinking, hey, great, I could use that. What do they do? What's the first step?
So what they would have to do is go to goodwillstrong.org/kindred. Kindred is the name of the program, ministry, whatever you want to call it, connection. And we're going to have a Google form for these women to connect. And in the form, it highlights just different things that you're going through in the season of your life. I know Annie kind of touched on, if you're struggling with infertility, if you're a first responder family, if you're a military family, it doesn't have to be that specific, but if you are in that season of your life where you definitely need a little bit more attention, we'd try to match up people based on those needs. Just that way, others can kind of give different perspective. If they've lived through something, not obviously a global pandemic, but if they've lived through difficult seasons of their life, it would be helpful. Like I said, I'm a wife of a first responder. So reaching out to other women who may have retired family members that are first responders would be helpful to me. So that way I can connect, and also that I stay on the path of making sure that I'm praying for my husband, that I'm praying for wisdom and clarity. Because conflict's going to rise when everybody's in the house, right? Annie, your mom actually touched on that today in our mom's group. She did a wonderful video on that. So just staying the course and making sure that we're following God's word, and we're speaking life into our families, into our, into our daily lives, and having that person to connect with would be great. So go to the website, goodwillstrong.org/kindred. There'll be a Google form, more information, and we'll touch base with that. And then Annie and I, with a team from all of the different branches, they'll be able to pair people up.
Awesome. So we're gonna make sure that link is connected to this video, so that when you're done watching, just click on that. You can go right to the form, and you'll be able to fill that out. Annie, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah. I was just going to say, we'll have 2 forms there. I think one will be for the language on this is all kind of clunky. It's not really, like you said earlier, Marcos, it's not exactly discipleship. It's not mentoring. It's not this robust program. So even finding language has been a little difficult for it. Maybe that's just the global pandemic.
Right.
But usually words are not a problem for me. But we're kind of calling the older women. We didn't want to be like old women and young women. So we're saying our leaders, these are people who are grounded. If you feel like you're part of Goodwill Church, you have been discipled, you are solid in your relationship with Christ, and you would like to reach out to a younger woman, there's going to be a form there for leaders, and then there's going to be a form there for participants. This means that you would like to receive a call from someone from the generation above you, from an older generation. There may be people in the middle who feel like, I want both of those. Like, listen, my teenagers and college kids, they're out of the house. I would love to call a young mom or a single woman and touch base with her. And I could really use a phone call to check on me, because my college kids are all over the place, and this is hard for me. And there are going to be a lot of women who want both of those. So there are going to be 2 forms there, and we would really encourage you to think about it, pray about it. If you're an older woman who's home, or a young woman who's home but older, if you have the opportunity that, hey, I could do one of these calls Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm willing to call more than one young woman. There's an opportunity for the leaders, the older generation, to put that in there. So if that's an option, we'd appreciate that. If you feel like you have the time and margin for that, if not, that's okay. But yeah, like Kristen said, all the information will be on that site with the 2 forms for you to fill out. And then we'll try to match you, hopefully within a few days, depending on the response. We're going to match as quickly as possible. And then both people will receive an email with the contact information for the other. And we're going to encourage you within the first 24 hours to just touch base, just send a text, make a call, and set up your first time to call. You don't have to have your first call within the first 24 hours, but within the first 24 hours, just set up your time.
Yeah, that's helpful, because listen, we're heading into Holy Week. And this is going to feel really weird for all of us. A lot of us during Holy Week, not just pastors, like pastors are always at the church multiple times, but the congregation is regularly at church through Holy Week. We're going to feel the distance even more now than we have. So this is really, I don't want to over pressure folks, but this is a bit of an all hands on deck situation, right? Because we do need people from a variety of different backgrounds. There are people who have been single their whole lives, some who are single again. There are people who have been married for a really long time. There are people who are older who are newlyweds. Like, we got a whole lot of different kinds of women in the church that can speak to a bunch of different kind of women. We need everybody to jump in on this. And so, if you can click that link, that'd be really helpful. But I can imagine there are some who are hearing this and being like, that sounds great, except this. And then they're going to fill in that blank with whatever that is. So Kristen, there are obstacles to anything like this. And I wonder if there's a woman watching right now and be like, that's great for other folks. Here's why I can't be a part of that. Could you speak to that for a second? Like, what are some of the reasons women might not want to be involved? What are the obstacles? Why shouldn't those stop them?
Well, like anything, adding something else onto your plate, whether you're stuck at home or you're living your daily life, it's, it can feel overwhelming. It also can feel a little like pressure as like, what do I say? You know, am I not saying the right things? You know, if it doesn't grow organically, you know, does it feel a bit confusing? So I think that we kind of second guess ourselves, that we're not capable of doing it. But I feel like once we get over that insecurity of that and really allow God's presence to be within us, and being able to connect with other people and share our experiences and be very transparent during this time, just allowing ourselves to be open to it, I think that God will work within us and work within other people. I know that I will be a participant in this, just because I am a mom of two little ones, and I am, you know, thankfully my husband's house has not had any sort of major impact. He is in Queens, but so far so good, and I pray over him. It's a little overwhelming sometimes, but I know as a participant, I value when the mentor moms in our group. So I'm speaking from experience, you know, this is not just from this future program, but I'm speaking from experience that when I do get those phone calls or when I do connect with them, it just gives me a sense of peace that comes over me. And it allows anything that interferes with my relationship with Christ to just kind of wipe away. And I really am thankful for that. You know, I'm really thankful for that connection. And because I'm not being able to, you know, I'm an extroverted person. I love being able to, you know, go to church, and it's the long running joke is, you know, after service is over, they're going to need an hour to get Kristen out of church. In fact, my husband proposed to me after church, and he was like, "Oh man, we're going to be late for these the setup."
That's awesome.
And the pastors they knew what was going on, so they're like, "Let's get her out of here." So for someone like me who is craving connection, I welcome that. And then if someone who's like, I don't really know if I'm capable of doing this, you know, it's not really my cup of tea. You never know what God is going to reveal in these connections. And I pray that these relationships that are built just honor and glorify Him, and they help others see the light of Christ through all of this. So when Annie, like I said, when Annie called me, I was like, this is awesome. I like, we have to be a part of it. And thank you for including me in this.
That's awesome.
So.
And Annie, when you think about, you know, all the different women in the life of the church, all these different places in life that women might find themselves, we have this common experience of living through a global pandemic. I mean, it sounds, even that phrase sounds so dramatic, but that's what this is. You know, talk for a second, just as a way of closing this up, the value and the importance of these kinds of spiritual friendships. You know, you're not just going to call and chit chat on the phone. You're going to talk substantive, important things to really get to know one another and care for one another and love one another. Why is that so important right now?
I mean, I feel like what you're describing there, that is the heartbeat so much of what the church is, and what we're called to. And I think that right now, even though we're all going through this together, there can be so much loneliness in it, whether you're in a house by yourself or you're in a house with a lot of other people, or you're still going out and you're still doing an essential job and you're facing the stress of that. There's a loneliness, I think, in this. And I think one thing that is helpful to me is to always look for, like, okay, in this hard thing, what is the invitation? So if there is a loneliness, if there is a self-isolating, what is the invitation of God in the midst of that struggle? Not to pretend the struggle isn't there or to diminish the pain or the reality of it, but to say, all right, God, what are you inviting us to in it? And I think we have a unique opportunity as a church body to hear God's invitation to draw close to each other. I think lots of us long for more community, even within our church, even a thriving church like Goodwill. People come in and leave and feel lonely and don't feel seen sometimes. And so if you are in that boat, whether you normally feel like your cup is totally full and you are suddenly lonely, or you've been feeling kind of isolated for a long time, this is an opportunity for you to do a simple thing, a 30-minute phone call, which I know is maybe not simple for some of us, but a 30-minute phone call once a week where you are connecting with someone else. And one thing that older generations have helped me to learn is if that's a struggle for you, maybe seeing that as a service instead of something for yourself could be a pathway to finding your way into this space. Because I think for younger women, it can be helpful to have for older women to have cross-generational relationships. I know when I talked to my mom about this, she said, hey, I would love to have another family that I am specifically thinking and praying about their kids instead of just thinking about the news briefings, or whatever the thing is. Like, I would love to, she's praying for all her grandkids. She's praying for the kids she's involved with, the different people she knows, but she wouldn't mind having one more family that she's checking in on and loving, and so I think it's a way that our generations can serve and love each other. I would want to say to the older generation, to people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, that 80s, 90s, like, we're open, that we are hungry for this as younger women. And I don't think we've ever realized how hungry we are till now. There are so many things I am appreciating about my mother and grandmothers as I face this, and just recognizing strengths that I did not realize they had, and desiring those voices in my life. So my hope is that we would connect with each other. If you're an introvert, I mean, obviously Chris and I are both really extroverted, but if you're an introvert and you're like, yeah, phone calls are not what I'm looking for in my life boxed in here right now, I would challenge you to give it a try for 6 weeks. If you do it for 2 weeks and drop out, like, I mean, we're not encouraging that, but we'd rather you try than not, honestly. And I think even for an introvert, the opportunity, like I was saying before, to check in with yourself. If you know you're going to have a phone call as an introvert, you do a little time to think through, what am I going to say? How would I respond to that questions? And we are going to make the bar as low as possible. We will give both of you the kind of questions we're talking about asking, so it's not a surprise. There's no gotcha. There's no commitment card at the end of this 6 weeks. This is just please connect with someone. Make a little space to check in with yourself and with someone else, to encourage each other, share a scripture, share the hard and the good of your week, and love each other and be praying for each other. It's so simple, and we're just hoping that people will jump on board.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Annie, Kristen, thank you for taking some time today to talk to the Goodwill family. And again, I just want to echo everything that they've said. This is important. I encourage you, look at the link. It's right here with the video, goodwillstrong.org/kindred. Click on that, fill out one of those forms, fill out both. If you want to be able to do both, jump in on this. I think it's going to really bless you. So thank you both for joining me today, and Goodwill Church, hope that this is a blessing to you. We will see you soon.
Thank you.